I'd like to introduce to the stage the lecturer for tonight, Anna Funda. Anna is the young woman who electrified everyone with Stasi-land, as we well know. She gave up such a splendid job as a legal consultant to the Australian government, barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Victoria. She was appointed senior legal counsel for the Australian government, specialising in human rights and constitutional law and treaty negotiation on behalf of Australia. And to give that up to become a scribbler seems to me a sad betrayal of early promise. However, she fulfilled that early promise with her remarkable book, Stasi-land, concerning East Germany and those who'd lived under its secret police and worked for its secret police, the Stasi, those who remembered it with horror, those who remembered it ambiguously, and those who had actually done its work. This book won many awards in Britain and in Australia, including the Age Book of the Year and the W.H. Heinemann Award. In June 2004, it was awarded the world's biggest prize for non-fiction, the BBC 4 Samuel Johnson Prize. And if you want to stay later, I'll tell you who Samuel Johnson was. It received an ecstatic press, not least privately in my own heart from myself, in a gripping, often chilling account that peels away the clandestine layers of the former German Democratic Republic. Funda charts a precarious course through a world of broken dreams and shattered lives. Her exceptional investigation is required reading towards some understanding of what befell the people of East Germany in those years. She is now going on to compound that success by writing a novel. Stasi-land and the novel she is writing now have a great deal to do with courage. Her future is unlimited, and despite my snide remarks about her early constitutional and human rights credentials as a lawyer, they are very evident in her work and will be important in her work till the end of time, the end of her time and beyond. And I will let her now talk to us about courage, not only in its UN Charter certified forms, but in more subtle forms. You're very welcome to the forum, Anna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Tom, for that insight into the private press of your heart. I think that is a great concept. Also, I think you've given me a couple more prizes than I actually won, but I'm completely happy with that. Good evening, everyone, pen members and guests. It's a great honour for me to be here tonight. You can read books all your life and not have any idea how to write one, and you can read essays all your life and have no idea what it is really that you're reading. So I looked it up. An essay is a tentative effort, an attempt, or an analytic literary composition, usually dealing with its subject from a limited or personal point of view. This talk tonight is based on a longer essay, which is all of those things. It's tentative, it's an attempt, and it's personal. The video footage is grainy and black and white because it comes from a security camera in the lobby of the apartment building. The man looks ordinary enough. He's not smearing himself from wall to wall to cover his back as he tracks down his target. His face is covered by the peak of his baseball cap, but he's clearly watching someone, something. This man is Anna Politkovskaya's killer. She's been recorded on the CCTV too, just moments earlier. She's come in from shopping, her hands laden with plastic shopping bags she took up to her flat in the lift. The lift is coming down again. Anna's coming to get the rest of the bags from the car, and her killer will be waiting for her when the lift doors open. Anna has been out with her daughter Vera, who's living with her at the moment. Vera's pregnant, and they've been looking for a sink big enough to bathe the baby in when it comes. They went looking separately, phoning each other in the afternoon. They didn't have much luck with sinks, but Anna did her other shopping. Then she called Vera to say she was going home. Later, Vera called the apartment, but Anna didn't answer. When Vera said she hadn't been able to reach Anna, she called her brother Ilya, who said he would drop by. When family members used to beg Anna to stop what she was doing because they worried it would get her killed, she said she'd stop when a grandchild came. But mostly when Anna was asked to stop or to leave Russia for her own safety, she said she couldn't. She couldn't leave, and she couldn't stop. Anna knew she was going to be killed. There'd been several attempts on her life before. One of them, a poisoning on an airplane, she'd been able to attribute to a member of the FSB, Putin's security service, whom she'd seen boarding the plane. There were phone calls at night. Don't worry about buying Christmas presents this year. You won't be around to see it. Ramzan Kadyrov, the Moscow-installed leader of Chechnya, told his government, quote, he'd had enough and that Politkovskaya was a condemned woman. Kadyrov's main supporter in the Kremlin, Putin's chief of staff, Surkov, put her, according to Anna, among the incorrigible enemies who simply needed to be cleansed from the political arena. So, Anna wrote, they are trying to cleanse it of me and others like me. In 2003, she said it was a miracle she was still alive. Excuse me. What was she doing for which she would be killed? Anna described her crime against the state. She said, I have merely reported what I have witnessed, no more than that. What she witnessed was the re-establishment of a one-party dictatorship in Russia over the people of Russia. She reported to Russians and the world about Putin's manipulation of the political process to acquire dictatorial power, and she described the human cost of it by painting portraits of those who suffered from the corruption, torture, and killings that flowed from it. If you give a human face to the cost of a dictatorship, two things become clear. Nothing is worth this price, and this is a political system which cannot nurture humans. Courage involves facing down fear. Without fear, one's just reckless or mad. The greatest courage, according to Aristotle, is needed to face the greatest fear. And he writes, the most fearful thing of all is death, for it is the end, and it is assumed that for the dead there is no good or evil anymore. The Nobel Prize-winning physicist Steven Weinberg writes that the assumption that this life is the only one is the thing that makes cowards of us all. I know what he means. It would make a coward of me if I had the courage to think about it. But it doesn't make cowards of all of us. I wondered whether it's possible to know you're going to be killed in the same way that we all know we're going to die. We live with the certain reality of our own death by turning it into an idea or a concept, an event so distant in time and of unknown details, in your sleep, in a bus, by bus, lightning, shark, that it doesn't bear thinking on. Like other bad things shoved into the hazy future, credit card debt, a pound of flesh due, a lecture to be delivered in 9 months' time, it becomes almost hypothetical. My small daughters talk about death a lot. Talking about death is a phase, apparently, which most people, except philosophers and the religious, grow out of at about 6. My daughters talk about my death too, and my mother's, their grandmother's, which happened before they were born. It is hard to talk about your death with your daughter. Anna did not have the luxury of assumed time in order to render faint the prospect of her own death. Vera tells of how before going to Chechnya, Anna would be filing papers. She'd hold up a document to her daughter and say, "This is important, I'm putting this here so you know where it is." The rest of the sentence, unspoken, was, "in case I don't come back." 5 months before her assassination, Anna was in Sydney for the Writers' Festival. She was direct and eloquent. At the end, there was a question from the audience. The man said he admired her being so valiant, but he wanted to know what the personal price was that she paid for living under the threat of death. Anna paused and became, for the first time in the session, self-conscious. It was as if what she had to say was, to the extent that it was about herself, almost too grandiose or self-regarding to be said with a straight face. She said, "The price does not matter. It does not matter compared to the cause you are trying to serve." Then she turned the conversation immediately to her children. "But of course, for many years my family hasn't been living a normal life," she said. "There are threats to my life." She listed them. "When I was called to negotiate in that theatre event, which was the Nordost siege in 2002, I got a phone call from my son who was almost screaming. He was saying, 'You are going to say no. We demand you say no.' My main concern," she continued, "is that my life, this situation, goes on top of the lives of my family like a bulldozer. They say to me, 'When you go abroad, we're so happy, all of us.'" By now the audience was laughing again, and she was herself again, deflected. "We're happy because we don't have to worry whether somebody has put an explosive under your car or whether somebody is standing behind the door." So what is it that is worth more to a mother than protecting her children from fear, bereavement, and possibly danger to themselves? For what will she leave these children and the grandchild coming? In the Republic, Socrates wrote that courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees the others. Without courage, a person cannot maintain their moral position in the face of opposition. The novelist Marilyn Robinson puts this well into a contemporary frame. She writes, "A successful autocracy rests on the universal failure of individual courage. A democracy relies on its exercise. I think we would be wise to learn to cherish it in one another." Individual courage is necessary for the existence of a democracy because, as Lord Acton had it, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Absolute power is power unchecked by a free press, and I mean by that intellectual freedom generally, an independent judiciary, and an opposition in Parliament. Absolute power is power unchecked by individuals who themselves protected by a free press, the judiciary that's independent, and the ballot box can find the courage to say no. That is going too far. It's going too far, for instance, to scapegoat Jews as vermin. Or in Australia, it's going too far to slander asylum seekers as illegals. It's going too far to lock up innocents, including children, in camps in our suburbs and deserts. It's going too far to be able to secretly imprison people by executive fiat. It's going too far to promote fables and lies about weapons of mass destruction and terrorists in Gold Coast hospitals as a basis for sending us to war and for consolidating further your power. When the democratic protections are no longer in place, and sometimes when they are, it takes enormous courage for a person to, as Anna said, merely report what they have witnessed. Because society is a living organism, these elements shift in relation to one another, gaining or losing ground. But they do this in an environment which has laws as firm as Newton's. Just as gravity makes things come down, power sucks more of itself to itself. It centralises control like a magnet pulling iron filings from every direction, like a black hole sucking matter into itself. In order to do this without protest, power stifles dissent. I've spent many years examining this phenomenon, the iron filing manoeuvre and the courage of dissenters, from one angle or another. I looked at it closely in the former German Democratic Republic. I spoke there with people who disagreed profoundly with the need for other voices limiting power. These men were, unsurprisingly, members of the ruling party and its security service, the Stasi. But my main interest was in the people who had the courage to speak out against this system. Miriam and Julia were schoolgirls when they knew in their bones that what was being done by the state was unjust and illegitimate. Frau Paul, Sigrid Paul, was a dental technician and a housewife. Her story illustrates very starkly something extraordinary about human conscience and the courage to stick to it. When the Berlin Wall went up in August 1961, Frau Paul's very sick 8-month-old baby found himself in a Western hospital, and the wall was up and she was on the eastern side and couldn't get to him. So she started to try to escape with the help of a West Berlin student called Michael Hinze. The Stasi caught her and offered her a deal. Lead Michael into a trap for us and we will let you to your baby. Frau Paul refused. She put it to me this way: me, bait in a trap for Michael? Of course, that was an absolute no. She was crying, holding one hand in the other and swapping them around, as if to find some kind of comfort. I had to decide against my son, she said, but I couldn't let myself be used in this way. Frau Paul spent 18 months in prison and her son the first 6 years of his life in a West Berlin hospital ward. Neither Miriam nor Julia nor Frau Paul was educated or privileged like Anna Politkovskaya, yet they all said no. They said effectively, I don't care what you do to me. I will not let you use me in this way. Aside from the perpetrators and the heroes in East Germany, there were the pragmatists. The genial half-dressed drunk I called Professor Mushroom, who used to drink in the park opposite my Berlin flat, fell into this category. With one brown-stained hand on my knee, he told me, we all knew, every GDR citizen knew, that if you went close to the wall, you'd be shot. So we stayed here. I mean, they should have all sat here on their asses. Then they wouldn't have got them shot full of lead. There's an undeniable logic here. If you put yourself in harm's way, you are more likely to meet harm. Why do some people do it then? It seems to go against evolution, nature, and Darwin. Surely this is not the selfish gene at work and not the survival of the fittest. And it appears to go against reason. It doesn't look like enlightened self-interest. Or does it? Are our natures and our reason so separate? The ancient Greeks were interested in courage, although defining it seems to be a bit like defining other notorious things. You know it when you see it. But reason is important in thinking about courage. According to Aristotle, a courageous person is one who faces fearful things as he ought and as reason directs for the sake of what is noble. When the individual pits herself against the state, she may be facing fearful things as she ought, in the Aristotelian formulation, but the question remains, is it as reason dictates? And what is the noble cause, compared to which Anna said the price, her life, does not matter?